We wanted to leave you guys with something where you could immediately leave and put something into your business today. Some of these are rudimentary in their nature, but unfortunately most business owners aren't thinking about them. So we probably could have had 15 of these, and we debated on which ones to show, but we created 7 simple ways to improve your business. So Jason's gonna kick us off, and we're gonna ham and egg it back and forth.
So these are things that you could take home right now. First thing, plan for a successful year. This is from my board book at my company. This was how we started off every single year. First thing was strategic planning objectives. Goofy thing, we'd bring our management team together in October and say, okay, what are the things that we need to work on to improve the business? Every single person in here can do that. Sit down with your team in October and say, what are the things we need to work on? And just create a small list. Not a massive list, an attainable small list. It could be something as small as we want to clean up the shop quarterly to make the place nicer, and we're going to make that an objective. For us, we would work on our benefits, we would work on our employee engagement. As we had going from dozens to hundreds of employees, we would work on these things. The second thing is we would always do a budget. Again, do your budgets in October or November. Don't do them in December or January. And everybody on our management team, their compensation package was in some way linked back to our financial performance. If you have an operating company, get your executive team dialed into the financial metrics of your company and tie their compensation in some small part back to the success of the company so that everybody's speaking the same language and working from the same sheet of music. And everybody knows our corporate competency is based on achieving these metrics. And to achieve these metrics, we need to work together, and then you can see as a team if you're winning or losing.
Number 2, invest in systems, processes, and SOPs. Systems turn tribal knowledge into enterprise value. And people want to buy businesses that are process-driven, not personality-driven. So if you think about that, you can scale with a system, leadership can help you transfer it, but if you don't have well-documented systems, processes, and SOPs, do you have a business? How many business owners in here have SOPs for your business? Wonderful, it's great to see. We just spent the past 6 months, we hired a fractional COO. We wrote every single thing that you could possibly do in my business, from logging into our software systems to facilitating a transaction, a complicated one, when selling a business. We then took all of those SOPs, we hired an artificial intelligence company that's coming in, and they're going through an audit right now. How can you implement technology on everything that you have? Where are the gaps? Where are the holes? It's consistent improvement, but if you're not documenting it, how are you going to transition? The documented our value systems also comes into consideration for technology, your CRMs, your ERPs, any type of technology used to run your business. This is how you can actually standardize something as simple as onboarding a new employee all the way down to the fulfillment of your product or your service. And of course, it gives you a consistent reporting cadence. What are you measuring up against? Jason's going to talk about KPIs, but if you haven't standardized what you're doing written down, what are you actually weighing it up against? It also allows for clear expectations from an accountability standpoint for your employees. Risks and rewards should be done based off of how things are supposed to be performed in your business. And again, it's just very frustrating to see when business owners don't have the Bible of how you do what you do. And it's a very simple thing that you can do tomorrow. Even if you have it, most of you raised your hands, make sure you're refining it often. Make sure everybody in your organization is abiding by it as the Bible.
Next one is embrace continuous improvement. Again, this is one of those things that I adopted after my first private equity group came in. We talked about the things I did before I had an institutional partner and the things I did afterwards. This was one of the biggest ones, embrace continuous improvement. This was what they did. They brought in folks from my company and taught them how continuous improvement at a corporate level worked. Now, not everybody's going to have access to that level of education, but we had a continuous improvement champion at the company. We ran continuous improvement teams, and we did this as part of our culture, and that was something that everybody in the company was bought onto, and it was bought onto because I was bought onto it as the CEO. I drove this forward. So every single person here can think about when they plan their years continuous improvement? Is it how we deliver the cars to our customer? Is it how we onboard a new client? Is it how we set up our printing for the next schedule? Is it how we're going to deliver the batteries to the different boat builders that we work with? What is there that you could do better in your business? And then you get a cross-functional team with the oversight of the CEO that creates accountability and move that forward. This was just an example of some of the processes we did. One was RMA process with a big company that did a lot of cheap products. Return material authorization was a pain in the butt, so we focused on how do we fine tune that. Another one was sheet metal efficiency. I had a huge sheet metal shop. How could we reduce our WIP and increase our throughput? Scheduling, which was a huge one again for us. We had a cross-functional team, and every one of these things made our business faster, more nimble, more efficient, and ultimately more profitable. And when it came time to do that second turn, these are all things that made our company look better because our culture was built around continuously improving what was going on internal to the company, as opposed to saying the way we've always done it is the right way to do it.
Next one is build a clear organizational structure. So I mentioned before about systems. Systems make a business scale. Leadership makes a business transferable. So if you are a business owner and your business cannot operate without you, do you own a business or do you own a job? And Jason and I actually debate this a little bit on how much an owner should be involved in their business. But one thing that we don't debate is more owner dependency is more risk that a buyer is going to see. So risk lowers valuation, and when buyers are looking into buying a business, they want to see a strong second layer of management. If your org structure is the CEO at the top or the owner at the top and then a whole bunch of folks scattered throughout the bottom, the transferability of your business is going to be challenging. I know there's a couple people in here that operate on EOS, it's the entrepreneurial operating system, it's called Traction, and they say that there should be one individual responsible for every single major function of your business. Finance, sales, marketing, ops, whatever it may be, and that person is accountable and will answer to that owner. If you think of an owner outgoing and a new owner coming in, what's more valuable than a secondary leadership team or management team directly underneath the owner to transfer all that knowledge for an incoming buyer? Also, from a decision-making standpoint, I was at a networking event on Wednesday and I was speaking to a business owner, a former competitor of mine, funny enough, and he had said to me that he just got back from an African safari. I said, great, how long were you there? And he goes, 5 weeks. And he said, I take 2 of these a year, minimum. I said, well, what happens to your business? He goes, I come back, I sit down with my leadership team, and I find out how well did we do or what do we need to improve on. And I'll twist the knob and pull a lever. That's a good functioning business right there. And he's been around for 30 years and very profitable. Valuation multiples should be higher if the owner of the business can step away from the business and the business still operates fluidly. Also, one last point. Actually, I have a lot left on this one. I gotta go fast. One of the first things a buyer will request during due diligence is an organizational chart. And I'm actually really interested because a lot of times most business owners have 0 organizational chart. If you have some type of org chart, you're winning, but every person that's in your company, not for the person, but the actual position, should have a job description and an accountability structure on who they report to and who reports to them. I'll skip through all this stuff and leave with a clear organizational structure doesn't just make the business easier to run, it makes the business easier to buy.
100% true. All right, let's talk about KPIs. Key performance indicators. Now, I can tell you from my personal experience, you can KPI your company to death, please don't do that. And again, one of my private equity partners at one point wanted every single person in the company to have a KPI to tell me if they're doing a good job or not, as if we were incapable of observing them. And some things just don't lend themselves well to KPIs. But these are the KPIs that I ran my business on. And when we would do our quarterly board meetings, the first thing we did was my dashboard. And my dashboard had our KPIs for the company. For us, revenue, contribution margin, gross margin, EBITDA margin, and for us, because we were a fluorescent company transitioning to LED, percentage of LED and growth rate. Those were the things that were important to us. We tracked them every single quarter. We also tracked our trailing 12 months EBITDA every single quarter. These were important to us. But we also knew what it was going to take to get there. For us, we looked at our DLC listed products, which in my world of lighting were the ones that were qualified to go on rebates. So we tracked every single quarter with our owners, how did we look in these categories and were we expanding? Were we getting more and more products to address the market? This was a KPI for us. If every quarter we were adding the number of products that qualified to rebates, then theoretically we had a larger addressable market. Very bite-sized, everybody in the company could sign up for it, but there was a lot of work behind the scenes. Additionally, for us, for our sales channel, every single market in the country, there was like 54 of them, I think it was, and we would take every market in the country that was addressable. Did we have a sales rep? And was it an A, B, and C rep? So 3 points if it was an A, 2 points if it was B, 1 point if it was a C, and 0 points if it was unrepresented. Very, very simple, but every single quarter I could go through and rank those agents in every single market and make a determination, is my sales channel getting better? Is my sales channel getting worse? I would argue even for large businesses and small businesses, KPIs could be important. Simon, for your business, you could track on a monthly or weekly basis how many hours did my guys report, billable hours that they can transfer to the customer, and how much material did we purchase? Because the way you guys invoice could be over a long build, but purchase material is a key indicator of material that will be billed to a client in the future. Dale could be engineering hours. Trey, you could be monitoring how many new customers you get every month, what's your retention rate on customers, and be monitoring things from a customer standpoint. Maddie, you could be looking at what you're doing with your non-soccer business and other parts of the year. You guys could be looking at how many customers do we have, what are we doing on an office by office basis, how much is government versus how much is IT staffing. Lisa, yours could be how many projects do I have in my pipeline, how big is my pipeline, how many projects have we quoted, and are we going out getting enough business? I could go on and on. Take bite-size, very relevant to your business KPIs and monitor them and make them part of your company culture that you're managing to those KPIs. If I know that my product pipeline of products that can get a rebate is growing, then I know I'm growing my addressable market. And any business that does that, it creates an accountability cycle that you can then use to monitor your business. Simon, you could look at a dashboard every week or every month and say, how many hours did each one of my guys bill? And you say, oh, you know, Junior's billing was down this month. What happened? Maybe it was a vacation. Maybe he got in trouble on a project and something ran really long. Maybe he was taking long lunches. In either case, you can monitor that very bite-sized and say, hey, we're going to have a good month because my billable hours was 10% over what I expect it to be. And all of these different things, Julio, could be incoming caseload. Any of these things can say, is my business going in the right direction? And then if you have managers or production employees or salespeople in your organization, you could say, hey, this is a statistic that we all know is relevant to the long-term health and performance of our business. Are you meeting it? And if everybody agrees that the statistic is right, could be hours, could be new contracts, could be billable hours, could be new clients through the door, whatever that is. If we all agree that it's the right type of metric, then let's work towards those metrics, and over time the business will be better. And more importantly, when you go to sell that business and you go to a new investor group and you run a book, we call it a SIM, but basically like a marketing material for that business, you could go in there, this is how we manage our business, this is the culture of our business, this is how we monitor our KPIs, and now you could show somebody else in the future, this is why we run so good, because this is ingrained in our culture, which makes your business more valuable.
This one could have been 2 slides, but we combined it into one because I couldn't decide which one to get rid of. Buyers don't just buy upside value and opportunity, they price downside risk. So an opportunistic buyer is looking for, how can I grow this business? They're also going to price risk. We got some banking folks in here. They'll always look at the risk first. They don't always consider what the upside might be because you're not going to lend on that. But anything that you can do to de-risk your business, you are getting ahead of the game. Anybody have any ideas what are some of the highest risky parts about a business?
Succession plan.
That would be a good one.
Too reliant on a single client.
Customer concentration is one of the first questions that I ask every single seller. What makes up the largest portion of your revenue? You could talk about rule of thumb being no more than 10 to 15%. Some may argue that 10% is too much. I sold a business at a 6x multiple, 80% of their revenue was one client. Happened to be a very big theme park. How about vendor concentration? I was working with a business owner that was selling precious metals and stones, and one of their quarries, unfortunately only of their quarries, went out of business. They weren't able to sell shit anymore. So it's not just your customers, it's
Or their products.
Or your products. Well, also, how about revenue predictability, right? So I know a couple people's businesses in here, they have some recurring revenue, some don't. Think about a construction business. I was selling a construction business that did, I think it was 3, 4, 5 million in revenue. The next year they bumped to 10. They're trying to get their value on 10. It's not the right time to sell. You want to repeat the 10 a couple times before you go for that. Recurring revenue and stickiness is absolutely going to drive a higher multiple. You hear software as a service businesses, SaaS businesses, sell for an extremely high multiple. It's because they're buying revenue predictability. Diversity of industries and geographies. Think about a hurricane wiping out a business that had a big concentration of their customers in West Florida. Think about industries that you're selling to. I mean, anything you can do to spread the wealth out and the revenue out all across the board is going to be critical for your business. Owner dependence. Again, we debate a little bit on this one, but when you think about it, if a business is operating without an owner being there, it is more valuable. The owner can come in and keep pushing that business further, but so many businesses that I go to sell, the owner comes to me and says, man, I work 50, 60 hours a week. Or she says, I wear all of these hats. And they're pounding their chest about how involved they are in the business. That is not good. It's logical, but unfortunately, if you look at your business and you can't go away for 6, 7, 8 weeks, think about how you can.
So would you equate owner dependence and key man risk the same thing, or would you say it's separate?
Well, it depends. Does the key man have some golden handcuffs? Is the key man the owner? Are they bought into, the second bite of the apple? That's a good question, and it's a loaded question.
So there's a couple ways I would like to think about
Please.
that. So let's just say, Drew, you have a business that's worth $50 million, and you are integral to the business. 50, 60 hours a week, you own all the customer relationships, you know all the vendors, you developed all the products. And you say, I want to exit this business. Okay, well, what do you mean by exit? If you're like, hey, I want to put $25 million in my pocket, I'm in my 40s and I want to work until I'm 60, but I want to take some chips off the table and buy a house in Aspen, then you're in pretty good shape. But if you're like, hey, listen, I want all or almost all of my equity and I want to leave in 2 years, you're dramatically making that business less valuable. And this is the debate that Carey and I always have. I don't mind owner risk when the owner says, I want to take some chips off the table, bring in an equity partner so I don't have to personally guarantee everything, and then I want to take it to the moon. I don't mind the owner risk there. But if I have an owner who's 65 years old and says, I'm 2 years away from retirement and I don't really have a number 2 in charge that I can really rely on, and we're going to have to go to the market and try to find someone to backfill me for 2 years, risk goes up, multiple goes down. So there's always this dependence between where is the owner in their personal life cycle, and where is the business in that life cycle, and how does that match up for their desire for an exit? And every single owner, every single business, every single scenario takes on a life of its own as you evaluate what are my personal goals, my financial goals, and my business goals, and does that make me more or less investable for a third party?
It's a good seg into my last point, which is strategic optionality, and that comes into being ready for an exit. Because reducing risk will create options, and optionality creates leverage. So every single person that I talk to when they want to sell their business thinks they know exactly what the outcome's going to be, and they think they know exactly what they want, but it changes every single time. I'm going to give a couple examples. I mean, owners that are forced to sell, like Jason talked about earlier, death, divorce, disability, aging out, not having there's so many reasons why you can be forced into a sale. But if you have options when it's your time, you have leverage, not against the buyer, but for yourself to actually create the most successful outcome as it works for you. So I have a seller, I sold his business about 2 months ago, and he's a country club member with me. We play golf, and he kept saying year over year, I want to sell my business. And like 2 years later, he goes, I don't know if I want to sell. I think I want to stay involved because I don't know how to get this thing to the next level, but I know it has the ability to do it. I said, perfect. Let's go find a strategic acquirer that can buy you, or a financial acquirer that can buy you and help you get to that next level. So we marketed the business with him saying, myself and my CEO want to stay on. We want to go get the second bite of the apple. We know partially how to grow it. We don't have the capital to grow it. We know partially how to grow it, but we don't have the team to grow it. I sold the business for $2.5 million than what they were looking for, and the group that came in to buy them, within 2 weeks of selling the business, had their 2 competitors, because there's only 3 of them in the country, under LOI to acquire and bring together. So they're going to get another bite. It's just a question of how quickly. I have another business owner who we just went under contract yesterday, and this individual came to me and said, hey, he's 44. And he's like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Get me $5 million and I'm done. We went to market. We generated 350 NDAs, 46 written offers, and we took 12 conversations with all of those groups. When all 12 of the conversations were done, he knew definitively that he did not want to sell his business. He's 44. What's he going to go do? So he decided to take on a partner, a strategic partner. This was a commercial cleaning business. The commercial cleaning business that put them under contract owns 30 or 40 other commercial cleaning businesses. The key part there is that he also owned a piece of intellectual property, a software system, that served his business. He created it to make his business more efficient. It was his SOP, if you will. And then the group that's acquiring them took an equity position in the group that owned the software to cross-sell to all the other 30 companies and immediately have a software as a service business generating revenue. That's a win-win. This guy came in saying, I'm done. Now he found a strategic partner, still put $5 million in his pocket, and he's going to go get a big second bite of the apple. So you really never know, but something that Jason and I always talk about is just be ready for a sale. Because if someone knocks at your door and you're like, I don't know, I'm kind of slowing down, not really where I want to be, is a different conversation than, oh, I have a whole exit strategy, I have a whole growth strategy, I know how to grow this business, I just need some help. That's a better conversation to have.
I think one of the important things, having conversations with guys like you, specifically in that business opportunities, a lot of times you're so close to the mirror that you can't see your own reflection.
Absolutely.
So when you're using a strategic process, system, software, and you're just like, oh, it's a normal day to day, you go out to market, you realize a 4x multiple is really a 14x because you're a tech business that cleans.
Yeah.
That those conversations can be unearthed by just having that operation.
And a lot of people try to self-represent when they sell, and when they do, great job. Chances are that person left some money on the table, but somebody like Jason or myself, when we can come in, one, we've done this before, 2 different sizes, obviously his exit was substantially bigger than mine, but we work with so many different business owners and you see so many things. We learn something in every damn deal that we do. That's true. We just have a little bit more tribal knowledge because it's what we do for a living. I don't know how to do what half of you do in here, but when you go to sell your business, people are not thinking about all the aspects of a sale. And some of it is having an entrepreneurial mind. There's a lot of M&A advisors out there that have never owned a business. How the hell are they selling one? But yeah, again, we could talk about this one forever, about de-risking the business, but be ready for an exit any day. You never know when you're going to do it. You never know when someone's going to knock at the door. But if you have your KPIs, your SOPs, your organizational clarity, and you're tracking all of these things, your business is a little bit more sellable when somebody does knock at the door.
And for your legacy and family. None of us,
Absolutely.
None of us are guaranteed any amount of time.
No, you never.
It can happen for your family and everyone else.
Yeah.
If it's in a good shape for sale, it benefit them a lot more than figuring it out without you there.
Damn right. That's a great point, Frank.
So last one. All right, so this is in the realm of I didn't practice what I preach until I was forced into it, and then I saw the why. Create a board of advisors. So this is the boardroom at my first private equity company, Finkston Partners. And right after we closed our sale, they said, okay, get ready for your first board meeting. I'm like, board meeting? We don't do board meetings. Like, no, get ready for your first board meeting. Here's a rough outline, and we'll work from there. Over the 4 years that we were with this private equity group, our board process defined our culture. It's where we reviewed our KPIs. We always started every board meeting with a scorecard for how we were doing. And every board meeting started with the action items from the meeting before. As we went through our board meeting, something comes up. Oh yeah, we should work on that. Add it to the action item list, and it was the first thing you worked on. Don't walk into a board meeting with a list of things to do and having not worked on them. If everybody sat around the room and nodded their head it was something we were going to work on, we went and worked on them. So I say this for all businesses. Create a board of advisors. It does so much for your business. And I don't care if you have 10 employees, 20 employees, 100 employees, I don't care. Create a board of advisors and stick to a quarterly schedule, put it on the calendar, and don't miss it. You don't need to have a whole bunch of high profile people on your board. Create a schedule, put it on the schedule. It creates an accountability loop. Now I have to prepare for my board meeting. What do I have to prepare for my board meetings? Financials, KPIs, follow-up actions on strategic planning items, any other things that we're trying to do with the business. And now you're going to sit in a room and you have to present it to people that are there to hold you accountable. You produce those KPIs, and if you're starting to build a business and you're saying, well, what are my KPIs? We define them, we report on them, we review them. Are we doing the things that we said we're going to do? What happens in businesses all the time, everybody kind of feels like they know what they should be doing. They get to the end of the year and say, man, we never really got a chance to work on that. Owners work in their businesses, they don't work on their businesses. It happens all the time. Let me tell you how simple this could be. And I'm only picking on the people who are my friends, so I apologize. Simon, Matt, Charlie, Henry. Henry owns a tile company, Matt owns a shirt company, Charlie owns a construction company. The four of you guys could be on each other's boards. You could put something, if the quarter closes on March 31st, you could put something 3 weeks later, where we're going to sit down one day, once a quarter, and everybody takes 2 hours, and you're going to present your KPIs, your financials, your plans, and you're going to present them all to each other, and all sit around and brainstorm with other minds in the room of how we can make our businesses better. Now, you're holding yourself accountable for producing accurate financials. You're holding yourself accountable to reporting on your KPIs and looking at them. You're looking at the things that you thought you said you were going to do when you did your end of the year budgeting and held that for the next year, and you're with a group of people that are all mutually invested in helping you become better. If you do that and you run that off 3 years, you're going to be better. You're going to run better, you're going to be in better tune to your numbers, and you're going to have a better outlook for how that business runs. Remember we talked about in my example, move a half a point a year. That's how you move a half a point a year. And that creates value over time. And then for those of you who ever want to exit your businesses, then when you go, hey, I'm going to go hire an investment banker, and you interview multiple investment bankers who understand your industry, you say, here's our quarterly board package. This is what we review every quarter. Here are my KPIs. If you run your process 2 years before you're going to sell, or a year and a half before you're going to sell, those investment bankers are going to tell you, these are the KPIs that people pay for. You're going to say, oh, well, then I'm going to add those to my board process. Maybe it's a ratio, maybe it's a sector of the industry, maybe it's a margin. For my business, I'll tell you my business, it was gross margin. Why is gross margin important? The bigger the gross margin, the more money you make, right? Yes, but that's not the whole story. In my business, we manufactured products. In our industry, 40% gross margin was kind of a litmus test. If you were below 40% gross margin, you sold a commodity. That means that you were competing on price and your product really wasn't that unique, it really wasn't that valuable, and your business was susceptible of just somebody coming in and undercutting your price. If you had a 50% gross margin, now you had a specialty product. You have a moat, you have a strategic advantage, and you could charge more for your product, and somebody can't just come in and copy your product and undercut your price. For us, that drove value on our multiple and our exit. So when you get with an investment banker, when it's getting time, hey, we think we're 2 years out, and you find those KPIs that drive value, then you start managing to the KPIs. One of the first things we did with my private equity group is said, we're going to work every single quarter to increase our gross margin. What was the first thing we looked at on that chart? Gross margin and contribution margin. Drive those numbers just a little bit every single quarter, and over a long tail, you increase the value of your business. And you don't need to overcomplicate this. This doesn't have to be a boardroom thing. This could literally be 4 friends who are business owners who commit the time every quarter to put it on the schedule and show up. Show up on time, show up for your friends, show up for your colleagues, and critique each other's business. I have a good friend, I was on the board of his company for years, and we would sit down in the board meetings, and it was my old CFO was his CFO, so she ran the board meetings exactly the way I thought they should be run. And we would go in with the management team. The management team sat in front of people, and these were just the owner's friends. And they would have to present to us. And we were all successful business people from different industries. And we would have our board books from the meeting before. We would have our KPIs, our financial metrics, the to-dos, the follow-ups. And we'd say, well, you know, if you tell me, and this was an actual conversation we had, if you tell me retention is your problem, and you're telling me recruitment is your problem, and you're doing $100 million in revenue or $50 million in revenue, tell me about your HR manager. Well, we don't have an HR manager. And all the other business people in the room said, well, if you come in here telling me that HR is a problem, why don't you have an HR manager? Next thing you know, we're recruiting an HR manager. Yes, Maddie?
In theory, that's good, but you know, you just said it's stepping over the fear, right? Like you see my financials. I have mutual respect for you. I know you've done your business, but the average person, I'm not just saying, hey, why don't you look at me? You know, I got 800,000 on my balance sheets. And so you give people that are common denominator or friends.
Your board could be me and Trey.
I get it.
You know the hard.
To a group of people, he just meant, hey, okay, you're in this business, you're in that business. I don't even like fucking showing to the bank. You know what I'm saying? That's me.
Yeah, but
They're sitting over there. Okay, well.
yeah, those are the bankers over there. Hey, he's not showing you his numbers. Maddie, the point is this. The hard part is being accountable.
Yeah, for sure.
The hard part is saying, by this date, I'm going to go through and do these things. And that's what prevents most people from doing it, because business owners are notoriously bad about being accountable, because they don't have a boss, they're freewheeling, and if the business is cash flowing and putting money in their pocket, they're like, and again, not practicing what I preach, this is what I did in my business. I was making $200,000 a month. It's more money than I ever seen in my life. I didn't need a board. I didn't need anybody else's ideas, right? Things are good. You know, the ST payment gets paid every month, Maddie's good, right? But the reality of it is, if you, in your heart, want to improve your business and have something much more valuable over a 10-year running time, and this is you, and I know your stuff. Step one is committing to a process, having numbers, knowing your KPIs, and reporting them, and being committed to reporting them on a basis, and then setting the time with people you trust, and you personally, your network of people that you trust, that love you, that know your business and would help you is massive. Me, Sanjay, Trey, Byron, I mean, the amount of people around you that know business, but you'd have to commit to the process and say that I want to do this, and not 1 month. You're committing to years of saying this is going to be the new culture by which I'm going to run my business, and I'm going to become a student of what it is to run a profitable business, not just a shop that's making me money.
You see it at the end of the year, that's when you see the fruits of the labor.
But if you commit to it, then you see it every quarter. And when you move things in a positive direction, you could see the expansion. But listen, there are a lot of people who have companies that are not saleable, that don't have equity value, and they could never sell that company and put enough money in the bank to fund their lifestyle. They're called lifestyle businesses. And if somebody has a lifestyle business, that's okay. I'm never gonna be like, oh, you have a lifestyle business, shame on you. Not shame on you. You're better off than 99% of the people out there. But if that's where you are, that's where you are. You don't have a lifestyle business. Your business has SOPs, strategic advantage, intellectual property, a huge customer base, and your business is substantial enough that at some point in the time, somebody could buy your business and pay you a lot of money for it because your business is fantastic. Everybody has this ability to grow out of that into something else, and if they don't, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you what your long-term run could be. What I'm here to tell you is, if you want that long-term run to be an exit at the end, a continuously growing business, a continuously increasing profit business, there's a path to it. The path has been well paved, and it's been well defined by people that do this professionally every single day. And hopefully I could show you the path, and then it's your choice if you want to walk down it. Yes, sir.
Just gonna add, man, I've only known you about a year and a half or so, and you are straight up no nonsense, no bullshit. This guy will tell you exactly how it is, and for those of you who want to grow to the next level, listen to this man. He's not paying for this either.
Thank you, Drew. No, I appreciate that.
And without his point number 7, we would have actually finished on time. But one thing to add though to board of advisors too, it's also about perspective, right? You're talking about people coming in that have different subject matter expertise, whether it's a friend that you're comfortable showing your books to or somebody that you're not. It's just having people on your team that are teaching you different ways. When Greg created Coastal, he did it by having a board of advisors. It was called a family office. And he found a bunch of people that know how to do things better than him in different areas, and that's how the company was formed. And I could talk about numbers right now with it, but I won't. But I will say a couple quick action items. If you are interested in scheduling a private exit planning consultation with Jason or myself or both of us, we'd love to talk to you. We actually really enjoy this process. It's fun. I finally met my passion and purpose when I fully stepped into the M&A space. There's nothing more rewarding than a business owner saying, you just helped me on a little bite-sized nugget or a meeting like this, or actually bringing their business to a sale. It's very rewarding. You can hit up Rich for a tax strategy review. He'd be happy to do it with you. And of course, coastal investment opportunities. We're in town and we're in Winter Park right next to Hillstone, strategically located because it's Greg's favorite restaurant. If you guys want to talk to us about any of our alternative investment opportunities, we'd love to welcome you in, tell you a little bit more deeply about what we do. But on behalf of Jason, myself, Rich.
And thank you to Greg.
Yeah.
Thank you for paying for lunch. Thank you for hosting us today. Thank you to Greg.
Yeah. We can hang out if you guys have any questions. If not, thank you guys for joining us.
The cookies and the brownies are ridiculous. Please help yourself.
Thank you guys.